5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition, liftoff, Semper Fi, aim high.
James O'Keefe here, Project Veritas. Last week, we released that whistleblower tape of CEO Jack Dorsey expanding his ideas of censorship. Not only was Project Veritas not deplatformed, we were trending number 6 on Twitter. Get ready, because today you're about to hear from one of Dorsey's top executives, Vijaya Gadde. She's the legal policy, trust, and safety lead. She does not know that she was being recorded in this staff meeting. And here she is on video discussing how and why Twitter put the president in a timeout before he was permanently banned. You can hear her talking about that and more.
The civic integrity policy in particular has a range of options, from labeling to removal in some instances to permanent suspension.
Vijay, I think you have the list of the top questions on SOC as well.
Yes. Some of the main themes we're seeing, I think I've tried to address them, but whether we believe Trump's tweets are inciting violence and having real world harm, I think we've seen that, in fact, they are. I think the question is which ones are. We've also seen that Trump has attempted, since coming back from the timeout, to de-escalate the situation, which I think has been helpful and important for some, if not all, of the people who are following him. So we do think that that is a risk, and that's why we're continuing our evaluation of how these tweets are being received and interpreted.
Next, Gadde exposes Twitter's plans to scale the censorship that we are currently experiencing here in the U.S. globally. Gadde says they're doing this because of the violence that has unfolded as a result of, quote, either misleading information or coded rhetoric. We wonder which leaders will be banned next.
Another question that we saw was just around the global application of this and how we can ensure consistency beyond just what's happening in the U.S. right now.
Yeah, actually, one of the interesting things is a lot of the work that we've been doing over the last week is work that we've built on in other places around the world where we've seen violence unfold as a result of either misleading information or coded rhetoric. So a lot of our learnings here have come from other markets. So in that sense, we do feel like this is our global approach. We need to be very focused on being able to enforce any of these policies or enforcement decisions we make at scale.
When it comes to big tech, it's no surprise that a cultural bias may exist, but at Twitter, it seems their own employees have become the activists running the company. Gadde sounds almost apologetic to her own staff for initially only putting Trump in a timeout.
And then the last question, which, obviously would love Jack's point of view, but have we read the letter from employees demanding Trump to be suspended, and what's our point of view on that?
There are certainly good ideas expressed within the letter that speak to the retro and how publicly we need to be about what we've learned about our policies around our actions.
One question in particular was just around, the first strike and the 12-hour suspension, and if we consider just the severity of the president's tweets and why we did maybe jump a couple steps ahead versus just sticking to the kind of first strike and the 12 hours.
Absolutely. We had a really robust discussion about whether it should just be a permanent suspension. At the end of the day, we felt that this punitive action that we were taking was a significant escalation from how we had enforced our civic integrity policy against the president in the past. We felt that it was important to send that message that we were incredibly concerned and that this was a significant violation of our policy. But we also felt that it was important to build trust, to also warn before a permanent suspension of an account of this importance, particularly in light of the fact that there were also messages of conciliation and asking protesters to leave and to be peaceful, etc. So obviously it was a judgment call, and we're relying on judgment of our teams and your leadership, me, Jack, and at the end of the day, that was the judgment that we made, that was the right approach. I can totally see why other people would come to a different conclusion, and it's a reasonable conclusion. And it was just I drew the balance in a different way, given where I think long-term we want to be in terms of building trust and enforcing policies consistently and providing adequate notice before we take a very aggressive step like a permanent suspension.
Last week, one of our investigations into voter fraud led to the arrest of an illegal ballot harvester in Texas. Her name, Raquel Rodriguez, and although she could face up to 20 years in jail, the mainstream media and big tech refuses to acknowledge that voter fraud exists. It's no secret that big tech was censoring most voter fraud stories, even ours. But listen to how they justify this censorship of something that is absolutely, incontrovertibly true.
There's also been a lot of questions about retros, of course we're going to do a retro. I mean, we're in the midst of a retro around the election generally. This will be most definitely folded into it. What we saw Wednesday morning was really concerning to us, obviously. So a small team gathered from Trust and Safety. We were discussing the potential for violence to happen, and we decided to escalate our enforcement of the civic integrity policy and use a label that disabled engagements to stop the spread of potentially inflammatory content, which is the content around election interference, election fraud, stealing the election, that type of thing. We think that the severity of what's happening on the ground, coupled with the information that's contained in these tweets, this misleading information about the election being stolen, and massive fraud around the election, are what is changing our analysis of how we should enforce this policy. It is a much more severe violation, given what we're seeing on the ground. We made the decision yesterday that we are going to actually be more aggressive in our enforcement beyond de-amplification. We are actually going to, for accounts that are primary purpose, spreading QAnon theories, we are going to, conspiracy theories, we are going to be permanently suspending those accounts.
We are doing everything that we can to ensure that Twitter is being used in a positive way that positively affects society.
If you're on the inside of big tech, mainstream media, or federal government agencies, reach out to us at veritastips@protonmail.com. Be brave. Do something.
Merci d'avoir regardé la vidéo. Si vous l'avez aimé, mettez un pouce. Et si vous voulez faire partie de la famille cosmique, abonnez-vous. Si vous désirez nous soutenir pour notre travail, vous pouvez trouver le lien Tipeee en description. Merci, à bientôt. Bisous.